Everyone. Ellen Sutter of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. Hopefully, let us see. Our guest today is Dr. Velma. I was reading something she was saying to me, but I'm going to invite her in. Dr. Velma is our guest today. We're going to talk about the last story, her mom in the waiting room with children. So I am. Hello, Patty. Patty Groovy. I think that's what it says. Hello to you, and hopefully Dr. Thelma will get that. I'm just going to wait a moment. Again, I'm Ellen Sutter of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. This page is a page of home book recommendation, author talk, live author shows, and live book discussions. Thank you for being here at this moment, Patty. Hello to you. I am doing well. What about yourself? Also, when I get her in here, let's see, Dr. Velma, there you are. Come on in the room. I sent you the invitation. We'll go get right into it. Come on in the room. And thanks again, Patty, for being here. And oh, the live stopped. Oh, wow. I hope it keeps going. We got our weather is going crazy over here. Let me try it again. Thanks for letting me know, Patty. Let's see if that works. Not Dr. Velma.
Hey,
Hey,
you.
can you see me, hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me
Yep.
okay?
And I can see that beautiful face there. And Patty has said the live stopped. Did it stop to you?
No, it just had a pause.
Okay, that's what you consider a stop
You
then, I
look
guess.
good, Ellen.
Thank you. You always, girl. Chop the hair off and still got hair on there, just a little bit on the top.
You look good. You look
Thank you.
good.
You too.
Mm-hmm.
She said it stopped, and I'm sure you'll get it.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you. She said it stopped, and I'm sure you'll get Dr. Velma going.
Good afternoon.
Mm-hmm. When she said get Dr. Velma going, and she's saying you're gonna get started. I don't know what she mean by that. You,
Oh,
you know how
get
you,
me going.
yeah, you know how you do.
Oh my God.
I don't think she mean that, but she might. You
I
think
said
so?
afternoon, but it's early evening for you, right?
Yeah. You
Mm-hmm.
think Cyrus sent her? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
She said, I'm sure you'll get Dr. Velma going. I was like, sure, Cyrus didn't send her. It's just an inside joke, Patty. You don't have nothing to do with
Oh
this. We
my
cut it up
goodness.
early. So, Dr. Velma, good book. Um, there's some things, like you said, with waiting room. But before we get started, tell the folks where you are. And like you said, you got a lot of fluff, and you just don't. I'm not saying you don't care about it. It's just, let's just get in there and just give them a little drop it,
Oh,
give
that's
them
so
the
sweet of
backdrop.
you.
Yeah. So you just go ahead and give them the backdrop of yourself and then a little bit about mom in the waiting room, and we'll get right into it.
Hey, hello everybody. I'm Dr. Velma Bagby, and I'm an author who began writing her books in 2018 after retirement.
Mm, that's good.
Yes, so it wasn't that long ago. So I'm 25 books in. I have 18 bestsellers, and I'm really excited about what God has done with the work that He's given me to do. And so I began this journey with the assumption that I will focus on dating and relationships because that was the area that I felt was in need of help,
Mm-hmm.
bad help. So that was on my heart, and I began that. But I found that God is starting to bring out some things during my own journey that I needed to talk about. And this book that we're going to talk about today is one of those. I did not know what I was going to write about when I was invited to participate in the anthology. But as it turns out, my just pouring out experiences on the pages helped me to go back to a time that I felt needed to be shared and that hopefully it will help other people going through similar experiences.
Awesome. So I want to get right into it. Like you said, you talked about in your book, In the Waiting Room, you said there's, like I said, some talks ago, when we talk about the waiting room, there are all sorts of people and walks of life that are in that waiting room. And you
Yes.
talked about, like a girl may be going through some issues. She's in her waiting room. But
Mm-hmm.
this particular time, you zoned in on your mama being in the waiting room. But what I saw fascinating was not only was your mom in the waiting room, but your eyes, from your perspective, was drawn in of children that may sometimes be in this waiting room.
That's right.
And so I looked at with them being in the waiting room, they're being young, and what can they take away from this? Learning about mom being in this waiting room. You did talk about that mom has resilience, creativity,
Mm-hmm.
financial acumen, and also smart wisdom. So, what, from your perspective, being a child in that waiting room, what could you take away from that as a child that will bring you forward in life to your own
I
journey?
think one of the things that I said in the book was really my childhood perspective. I didn't consider us poor until they told me we were poor. I didn't consider my neighborhood a poor neighborhood until they told me the people who lived in your neighborhood is poor neighborhood. I didn't consider myself a latchkey kid, the new terminology that they used back then, until I saw it on the news and realized I was a latchkey kid.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that my mother was a single mother raising seven. She had one baby to die, so she had eight, raising seven. And all of those things, the terminology that was used at that time, those are the things that really woke me up in terms of as I went back to look at what I experienced, what those things can do to a child. Because we're not looking at that kind of stuff. We're not looking at, I was happy. Neighborhood was happy. I had good friends. You know, you're just a kid enjoying your life, going to school. I love learning. I took French in the fifth and sixth grade because my grandfather spoke French, broken English dialect. His French dialect was very strong. So those are the kind of things you focus on at that particular age. But life in this world doesn't allow you to just do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I talked about my mom's experience and in my own experience and some of the other stories I've written. In this particular case, I focus on this, on another book that you read for me, My Yes to God. That's where I talk about how the world chipped away. In this book, I said, let me talk about what I saw from her, because that helped me to become who I was to become by watching what she
Mm-hmm.
did, her response. Some people sit around and complain about what's happening, or the hand that they've been dealt. They just sit around and my mother didn't sit around and complain. She decided to figure out a way to get out of that and look for more than what she had been given. And that's what I was really hoping to share in her story.
Wow, that is good. That's a lot of uh, nuggets to carry away. And then I want to go back, the resilience. What did you see in her resilience? And we're just going to break each thing that you said down.
Yeah.
In mom's resilience, what did you see?
Well, the county told her, since she was receiving county aid now after my dad left when I was in sixth grade, that she had to do what they told her to do. That the only life she could look forward to having was them coming in every month, checking, going through the house, going through the cabinets, making sure that she wasn't buying anything new with their money, and looking at everything was so intimidating. I would assume that it would be, because I'm still a child, but as an adult, I would see that as very intimidating. And so that, on top of being left with the children that she was left with, because my father felt that pursuing a music career was more important. He never got there, by the way, but he thought that was what he needed to pursue at the time. So she's left with that responsibility. And then with the embarrassment and intimidation that the county placed on single women back then, left with that. And then wondering, what can I do from there? Because our attitudes as a kids never changed.
Right.
Those were adult issues and problems. We didn't jump into that fray. We continued to be who we were as kids. And most of the women at that time, there was a section in the city in the hills where we called the folks up there, we called them the rich people.
Mm.
They weren't really rich. They were just kind of medium income, what we would consider medium income today. But for us in the flatlands, the lower lands, we thought they were rich because all the women in our neighborhood would go up there. That's where they would work. They would work in the houses. They would help to cook and to clean, those kind of things. And my mother made the decision, I'm not doing that. And because there was a family owned local grocery store and she knew the owners, and my mother always gravitated towards people, and that's another key. You can't expect doors to open for you if you've closed them.
Mm-hmm.
She was a people person. Now, the family that owned the store wasn't African American, but she was always friendly to other people. And because she approached the owner to ask them if they would allow her to work for free while trained her to become a grocery checker. And back then there was no scanning. Back then you had to learn 10 key by touch,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you had to know those codes of and punch them in. And that's what my mother did. That was real grocery checking back
Yes.
then. And so he said, because of what he saw, and because he had known my mother all that time living in the neighborhood, always gracious, always caring and friendly, he said, no, we're going to hire you, and we're going to pay
Mm.
you while we train you. And until that store closed, it wasn't long, but she got good training. She was able to leave there and go with one of the major grocery chains that had moved to our area. We didn't have large grocery chains back then, but one from Southern California decided to open up its first Northern California store. And she was the first Black checker in this store. And that's where she began. But her life wasn't easy in the beginning because she was serving people who didn't look like her.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therefore, the money went on the counter, not in her hands.
Yes.
But what my mother continued to do was still be her same friendly self, still be courteous, and love upon those children that they would bring through there. It was the kids that won the hearts of their parents because of how she treated them.
Wow.
So when you talk about resilience, you're talking about ignoring the negativity and focusing your thoughts and your mind above someone above that, so that you can pursue what you have to do, because she knew she needed to work,
Wow.
and that's what she did.
Wow. That is so awesome. And then you talked about her creativity.
Yeah.
So what was that like that you see her
she
do? I know I read it in the book, but tell the
yeah
folks here the
she's
different
always
creativity.
she had that ability, she had that creative bug, she really did. Because my mother would sew her own draperies. You thought she had ordered them from JC Penney's back in the day. That's what we had downtown, JC Penney's. And she would decide on how she wanted to reupholster her sofas. She did it herself. So
Mm.
when you walked in the house, you thought somebody, she had bought them, or either somebody had come in and done them for her. She was just that creative. All our clothes she sewed. When I got married, she sewed everybody's outfit except for the bride, the best, the my groom and his groomsmen. Everybody else's dresses except for the bride, except for mine, were made and designed. 16 candle holders, all with their outfits. And I'm telling you, and it's from her vision. She doesn't use patterns. She can actually see something and go back home and create it. And she did several wedding dresses after mine, but I'm just saying that was just, she just had that kind of creativity. She had an eye for design. And so it wasn't difficult for her to see something and figure out a way to make it even better. So she just had that ability.
Dr. Velma, you also, and you already talked about the financial part, how she got up into the grocery store and
Hmm.
ended up being the first African American in a newly building her debut. I would call
Uh-huh.
it her debut. And so her smart wisdom, you mentioned that.
Yeah,
Tell us
she
about
did. Well, when I thought about, as this was coming out of me, by the way, it's just me thinking about my mother and getting these words onto the paper. It made me consider what she may have gone through all that time. And I think somewhere in here I said, I don't know if she had any moments where she just felt mentally drained. I don't know if she had them. We never saw it. My mother would come in after working sometimes two jobs in the beginning, and then retreat to her room, and that was it until she would get up early the next day and she was gone again. My oldest sister was responsible for the household while my mom was away. And because all of us had an assignment, from the eldest to the youngest, my little sister at that time, I was 4 years older than her. So even she had an assignment. If it was nothing more than cleaning out the ashtrays because my mother smoked, or something that simple.
Hmm.
But everybody did. So people were shocked when we came into our, and when they walked into our house and it wasn't discombobulated, because
Hmm.
we all had an assignment. So the house was put together all the time. It wasn't, ever messy. It was never, you never walked into our house. You would not have known my mother had as many children as she had, with the neatness of our house, because it was just that we all had assignments and we did them every day.
And that's
And so,
what you go ahead, Dr.
no,
Bell.
you go ahead.
I was going to say that's something good. And like me, I came from a family of 11 with mom and dad. It's 13 of us. We grew
Mm-hmm.
up poor. We knew we were poor.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad, he didn't want to get on the government assistance because of
Mm-hmm.
those things you said that your mom had to go
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
Even though my mom was deaf, she never had to work a day in her life. But my dad said he is not doing that. Can you imagine 11 kids in the 70s? And
Yeah.
I would have thought we would have been on welfare, but we did not grow up off of welfare.
We had a couple of families in our neighborhood and at my school. Had 12 and one had 13, and neither did they. They were hardworking people and provided for their family. And I'm sure, you know, I'm grateful that many adults back in the day, my mom's day, your parents' day, they didn't have that kind of mentality.
They did.
They didn't have that, I'm going to get on. No, they believed in working. And that's something that we don't see much of anymore. They believe in providing for themselves. Even when decided to buy her first home, that was unheard of in the 60s for a Black woman to own her own home. And that back then, there were things that they helped them to do to get ready for owning a home that people don't realize. My mother had a car, so she had to put her car in her brother's name, just so that wasn't showing on her record when it was time for her to complete. She had to put
Mm.
some money in her bank to make sure her bank account was at a certain standard until after everything closed. And I really credit this woman who worked with my mom to get pre-qualified for the house. She worked with her months in advance before it was time to submit any paperwork, and gave her these clues and things that she needed to put in order to help her to pass. If you don't know that, you don't know what to do to get ready. And so, but this woman helped her, and it made me want to go. And I took real estate courses for that reason. I said, you know what? I want to help other people do what that lady helped my mother to do. But by then, my mom got sick and we were busy taking care of her, and I didn't pursue it. I think I took the test and failed it because we were at that time taking care of my mother. She had to be, you know, she needed help every day. And so that was one of the things I wanted to do what that lady did for my mother, and help people to know what they need to do well in advance of applying for a house, because you can become a house owner if you know what you need to have in place to do so.
Mm. I like the way you say you guys took care of your mom. What did that feel like to mom? I'm just imagining you could help us out and those who are listening. Wait, let me reset. Resetting. I see you if you're still there, Patty. Groovy, thank you for being there. Our guest is Dr. Velma, and we're talking about her mom's story, life in the waiting room.
Hmm.
And so I'm imagining that your mom is, she's used to being taking care of herself. What was that like with you guys as her children taking care of her? Was it hard sometimes being that the strength that she had and she's used to taking care of you guys? What was that like?
It was no question at all. It was like, this is what we're supposed to do. And there were plenty of us. We each had a shift. We had a brother that stayed there with her. He moved in. I had a morning shift. I was responsible from 8 to 11. So I made arrangements with my job. I said, look, my mother's sick. I can't come in until 11. I promised to keep that commitment, but that's what I'm going to have to do. And we'll figure out what that means regarding my check, my budget, all of that. But it was something I had to do. And then I had another sister that took the afternoon, and then one that took the evening. So my brother who stayed there wasn't responsible for any of that. So my job when I came in was to make sure She had her bath that she could get dressed, and she was bathed, all of that, and had her breakfast and her medication. She would take that. And I remember a little bad moment. One morning, my mother was in a grumpy mood, and sometimes you have to show some grace when they're at that age,
Yeah.
things they say and do. I don't know why you're late. I've been waiting. I said, okay, Mom, let's get started. And then I figured out, let me just put on some of her favorites, gospel singers, and put on her favorite gospel song by Shirley Caesar. So
Uh-oh.
that was the thing I did. That calmed my mom down right away. So I would play Shirley Caesar every day that I would get there to make sure the atmosphere was what
Oh,
it was
that's
supposed to
nice.
be.
Wow. What made
Hmm.
you think of that? What made you think of that?
Girl,
Something might
God
be a
helps
little.
you whenever you stuck, girl. Because the Lord, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that came to mind. And I think my aunt may have told me. I think one of my aunts may have told me. And I tried it and it worked so easily. It changed the mood right away.
That is so nice. Very nice. Your mom told you about how the world is and how they would be
Hmm.
negative. And so tell us, I know we had a talk to ago, and some people may have
Yeah.
heard, I don't know. So tell us, what was that like? She said that, and I wrote it down so I can remember. She said that to look on life, not to expect negative, and I may have written too fast to help me out. Negative, uh, and then she also, and then I wrote this too, that she said, uh, even though you were dealt that hand, and I'll
Hmm.
paraphrase, you can, don't try to make accept the lemonades. You just move forward in that. So I knew I may have messed that up, but please help me
I
out.
got it. It's okay.
You know how you
I,
think it
I
fast and get, ooh, that sounds good. Ooh, that sounds good.
just watching what she experienced and having the ability to just sit back and just go back and over my mind and my memories and look at what my mother did. It really helped me because there were moments in my own career where I should have aced an exam and was an interview, in-person interview. That was the exam. You got interviewed by a panel of 3 people, and it was on a topic that I was the expert on. And do you know I went in there and failed it?
Mm,
And I came back. It was a supervisory exam. I created the training for the topic that they were going to talk about. Everybody knew I was a shoe in, and I was so embarrassed when I came out of there and I didn't do well because I got in my head about who else was competing against me and whether or not I could do it compared to comparing myself to the others that were going to go after the same position. And so I failed because I got in my head. I went back and my supervisor said, "How did you do, Velma?" I said, "I didn't do well. I'm not taking that test ever again." She said, "Oh, yes, you are. That test comes around again. This is what my mother would have said.
mm-hmm,
That test comes around again. You're going to take it." Sure enough, I did. And that's when I passed, and my career took off after that. And that was an example of my mother. She had to have had those moments where she got up sometimes and said, "I don't know about this day." But she looked at her
mm-hmm,
kids.
mm-hmm,
And that's why I talk about, despite all the challenges she had, she was the layaway queen because there was always somebody in need of something.
mm-hmm,
She never purchased and bought anything for herself during this time that she was raising us because she was so busy making sure we each had what we needed. And so that's why in the story I talk about, and in the video, if you got a chance to see it, we talk about the fact that she didn't go to church because she was busy making sure we got there, that we had the shoes, that we had the clothes, my brothers had the pants. And that was a lot all by itself. And so for her to be able to move into a place where she can then now dress herself, we were all excited about that. She would go to church with the matching fur, the suit, the shoes, and many times because she's creative, she would create her own style with the clutch and putting her own little um, accessories on it herself that mat, and then put the accessory on her shoes. Girl, she was designing things that she should have been a designer, but she would go to church, and we were all excited because she worked so hard and deserved that moment for herself when she couldn't do that because she was busy making sure we had what we needed. And so that speaks to, also, you see these parents today. they're looking better than the kids. My mother never did that.
Mm.
She always made sure her children looked the best. And so
Well,
that's what's important.
it's two things I thought about what I was thinking about. Um, the gifts and stuff that you said your mother did, able to make things. Did she show that in the beginning when you guys were small, or just kind of kicked in as she had to go forward with what she had to do?
She always did it.
She
No matter
always did.
how minimal her money was, she figured out a way. That's why I said she was the layaway queen. The day after Christmas, she always went down to the bank. They had what was called a Christmas savings account that you couldn't touch. Once you put the money in, it was staying. And she would start the day after Christmas, whatever first day they were open, and starting her Christmas account for the following year. So she was always planning well in advance, which says to us how much my mother cared for us. She would plan well in advance to make sure our Christmas was special. And we couldn't get toys during the year or anything like that. We got new clothes for school, we got things we needed for church, but don't expect anything extra beyond that. But Christmas, we did. From everything, the way she decorated to the kind of fruit we got to enjoy beyond apples and bananas and oranges. We got
That bag,
introduced
that
to
brown
guava.
sugar bag. You talking about the
Oh,
brown
and
sugar bag?
watermelon. We got introduced to guava, cantaloupe, all kinds of things back
Wow.
then. Because she worked at
Wow.
the grocery store. So she would bring home these exotic fruits. And we're like, what is that? Now, it's normal to us now. But back then in the 60s, that was not normal
Mm-mm.
at all.
Mm-mm.
You got your big bag of apples, big bag of oranges, and your big bunches of bananas. And that was your fruit, period.
Wow.
Maybe grapes. But you didn't get introduced to all the other stuff like guava and
Right. That is so true. That is
honeydew
true. The second,
melon. What in the world? If it's not
what
a
was a
watermelon, we
honeydew
didn't know
melon?
what it was.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It brought me to my second thing that I was thinking about when
Uh-huh.
you said your mother cared for you guys and stuff. And what a great investment she poured into y'all.
Yes.
And then you guys gave her that investment, back,
Right.
the way y'all treated her into, her homegoing and, just kind of took care of your mom. So I want to
Uh-huh.
think about today's children because you mentioned that just a little
Yeah.
bit. It's kind of different. You say the moms are dressed and stuff like that. And I see quite a few moms that do so much for their children, but they don't get that investment back from their kid. So, do you see that
Well,
in today's
what other
world where their moms just do
responsibilities do they
everything?
have?
Yeah,
What other responsibilities do they have? We had jobs at home. We didn't
yeah.
just receive stuff. We actually worked and
Mhm,
we had to make sure those things were done every day. We had homework we had to do. We had to ensure that those things were done every day. So those rewards that my mother would give us was because of what she saw us do in response to what we're expected
mhm,
from her. And what we don't do today is we don't expect our kids to do anything. And just like I said, my youngest sister was about 5. She had to clean ashtrays. That was her job.
mhm.
And period. And she could not bypass her job. So we all had a role, and that's the thing that's missing at home. I remember my pastor said to the families in the church, he said, don't have an adult child living in your house and not paying any rent. It doesn't matter what amount it was.
Mhm.
When I got my first job, I was still home because I was 18, working and going to college. I paid my mother $50 a month. That's what I could afford. My check was 280 per month. That's 30 days of work for the state of California.
It is expensive out there. California is
Woo!
expensive.
So $50 of my 280 went to my mother
Mm,
because, and he said, stop letting adults live and sleep in your house. And it's not that you need the money. It's the principle because you can't
mhm.
live out there without paying. And so when you talk about young kids irresponsible and just handing them stuff without expecting anything, look, go pick up your toys and clean up your room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Go fix your bed. I remember my daughter, one daughter was shoved everything underneath the bed, and somebody brought to my attention. She said, "Do they understand what clean
Yeah.
means?" We do, but do they? So you have to go in and demonstrate. I want your toys in the box. I don't want anything under the bed. Make sure you hang up your clothes. If it's dirty, put it in the hamper. So you got to be clear about it.
Yes, that's
And
a
it's not about getting angry or anything. It's just about responsibility because they are going to be expected to have responsibility and accountability out in the world. And it begins at home.
it
And that's something that I don't see happening anymore.
No, we don't see that. So here's one thing too, Dr. Velma, while being in the waiting room, when you're in the
Hmm.
waiting room, being in the waiting room and you're a child in the midst of the waiting room,
Yeah,
what is that? And I may have said it already, but how vital is it for the mother to how she show what is going on in that waiting room to be teachable for their child going forward?
very vital. My mother said there's only one God she was serving in our house, and she expected our kids to serve the same one, period. If she caught you trying to serve anything else, you were in trouble. I remember my brother tried to smoke. My mother made it very clear this is my problem, not your problem. So
Mhm.
let me have you sit here and smoke this whole pack of cigarettes because I'm going to teach you that you're not going to do this. And yes,
I remember
sure did.
people doing that. I remember in my
We
family doing that.
were just hollering about my brother getting into trouble. So she, those rules were important. So yes, something we
Wow.
don't do anymore. We don't try to encourage. My mother said, one God only in this house. That's all we're serving. I didn't hear a lot of secular music until I went to stay with my father and my stepmother and her kids,
Hmm.
and my half sisters. And that was the first time I would hear um, secular music. Matter of fact, my stepsister would play a Sly and the Family Stone, going, "Who's this crazy guy with this crazy outfit? I've never seen anybody like
No!
that before."
Yes!
Our
Yes!
household was gospel, get ready for the choir, mom's rehearsal when my dad was there, his rehearsal with the gospel groups. That's all we heard. We didn't hear all the other stuff. And so that was the way our household was run. So faith was important. We were required to go to Sunday school every Sunday. We walked. You see any kids walking? We walked, and my mom couldn't afford her own outfits. She just could afford to get us there. And Sunday school was all she required so that we were learning what we needed to know. And
Mhm.
she gave us money for the movie theater. A quarter is what
Oh,
the
you
movie
went
cost.
way back.
We all got a quarter.
Ooh,
Go to the movie. Sometimes we had popcorn money. Sometimes we didn't. It didn't matter. We were just excited to go to the movies.
wow. Dr. Velma, what was your most funnest while writing the book? What part is, and I'm pretty sure the whole book is, but what glimpse can you give us that you saw that you, I don't want you to say which one is the best, but which ones that you can just off the cuff,
Yeah.
that you've seen in there that you, um, I'm sure you enjoyed writing the whole book, but that you enjoyed certain scenes writing it and really kind of engulfed yourself into it.
There were a few things that I thought about, and I didn't even include it in there. I talked a little bit about my mom taking us to the theme park in the summer. And I know that was a big chunk of her budget, but she made sure we got a chance to go to Santa's Village, was kind of like Marine World, Magic Mountain, Disneyland back in that day.
Hmm.
And it took about an hour and a half to get there. She always packed lunch. She had enough to get us into the park, and then we would come out to sit down to eat whatever lunch she prepared for us, and then we'd go back in to finish out. That was a real sacrifice, and I just thought that was really special. The other thing that she did is she was really specific in the kinds of toys we got for Christmas because we didn't get them all year. And I remember one year she had this car like thing that reminded me of the golf carts, but it was a toy. You had a seat in the back just like the golf cart, and you had a driver in the front, and it moved based on your paddling,
Wow.
and it had the top just like the golf cart. I had never seen it, and boy, the neighborhood would be so ecstatic over the toys we would get for Christmas because
Wow.
they had never. So we get four of us in that, go down the street, and we were having a ball. The other thing that we found we would do is we weren't allowed to leave our yard. Our yard, we had a big backyard, porch, front porch. Couldn't leave the porch. If you're in front, couldn't leave the yard. So some of our friends would come over because we had things that we could do. We had jump boards where we would take turns. My mother would buy us a big inflatable pool, swimming pool in the summer so that we can get. And so they were so excited in the neighborhood. They would, let's go over to their house. They got a pool in the backyard. So my mother always looked for things like that.
Hmm.
Layaway queen, to make sure that we had some form of entertainment, that we didn't have to leave our house or leave our yard.
Dr. Velma, just saying that, I'm thinking back to what you said a little bit earlier, how
Hmm.
you didn't know you was poor and latchkey things.
Yeah,
And so if you could just kind of just bring those things together and think about, uh, wow, am I
yeah,
poor or not? My mom got this and the neighborhood is coming. And
yeah,
like you said, the sacrifice that you ever,
yeah.
now that you're an adult, to kind of correlate that together and
Hmm.
see how precious that was.
Really.
You never, I mean, like, I would think y'all was the richest thing, richest
Well,
thing.
some of the neighborhood kids
Yeah.
thought the same thing too. Your dad's not home. No, he's not. It's just my mom.
Wow.
But just being so creative, like I said, and genius. It's layaway queen. She had layaways almost everywhere that would allow a layaway, and so that's the way she managed, and that's the way she got things done. And it was really, really wise and smart of her the way she did. What she couldn't sew, she bought. What she couldn't put on the layaway, that's what she paid cash for. But I have to assume that my mom ordered some of these toys that she had for us because they were really different. People in the neighborhood didn't know what they were and where they had come from. But maybe it's has something to do with her working in the grocery store. Maybe she had access to catalogs or things of that nature. But she sure found some things we were like,
Wow.
what? Yeah,
Wow. That is just amazing. Our time is going by
I
fast too, but we still
I
have time.
know.
And you mentioned earlier, like putting, getting, you know, collaborating with those who were doing this anthology.
Yes.
You had to think. I imagine you didn't have to think too long about what would you put in that anthology. So did it just start coming to you when you?
Well, I think it did, because really, Ellen, when I thought about it, I had already written a little bit about my own personal journey in one other anthology. And this one I said, let me not talk about me
Mhm.
this time. Let me just talk about my mother, because I think it's important for women to see what's possible, see what you can do based on how you view your situation, and how you decide you want to get out of it. Because some people just sit around and complain without being creative in their ability to make a change. And then the people who have one or two kids complaining about what they're doing. And my mother had seven. Come on now. Really? When I hear that, I'm like, wow. Let me tell you about a woman I know.
Wow.
So it's important. When I began writing, I said, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to help somebody else. This is going to encourage somebody else. And it could be women out there who's doing exactly this. But at the same time, there are some who are not and could use this kind of motivation to help them through whatever it is they're going through. Because just because it's where you are now, it's not where you have to stay.
Hmm.
It's not the end of the story. You can create a whole new lane for yourself, but you have to be the one that wants to do that. I don't know why we think God is just going to present it, put it in a box, and have it show up at the door. No, He's going to help you, but what are you doing?
Hmm.
And that's the one thing my mother encouraged us. She wanted us to believe that all things are possible.
Wow.
And we saw it work for her.
Now, when you talk about latchkey, I'm just thinking about myself growing up. We were too, but we wasn't given a key. And what I mean by that is my dad, I can't really speak for it, and I can't really see my mom being deaf. This is me. This is from my perspective. Um, I don't know if he didn't want us to scare her. Being deaf, somebody comes in with a key, and I don't know the real reason why he wouldn't give us a key. but you know that I'm going to be writing my book, and it's going to be part of this in here.
That's good.
But I just want you to imagine this. Your mom is deaf. You know she's deaf. You're not given a key. You just go home and you knock on the door. You just wait till mama open the door. Sometimes there was 2 and 3 hours that I'm already home, and I just sit there until she realized I'm there. Now she had concept of time, but there was times that she cooking and doing different
Right,
things like that before daddy
right,
comes home. But so in between that time, I can't speak for my other siblings, but I know there was an hour, 2 hours. And then one particular time I went home and I knocked on the door. She happened to open it and I said, "You can't hear." She said, "I can't hear." She just happened to come at that time.
right,
So can you imagine being a latchkey without a key?
right.
That you had to wait. You had to
We
wait. And I just imagine that's what my dad probably just did not want. This is me, probably just did
right,
not want to scare her.
right. Well, here's the thing. They called it latchkey. We never had a key because the
Mm-hmm.
doors were never locked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was no key. We got
Mm.
into the house because the door was left unlocked.
See, that is so
Right.
true. That one. And see,
Back then.
in my case, the door was locked. Even though we had a really good neighborhood at that time, growing up in those times. But I can imagine he did not want anybody to walk in on mom, and mom definitely would shut that.
We had
And so it's a lot
good
of them things.
neighbors.
Yeah.
Everybody watched out for each other, but coming in at 2 and 3, 3 in the afternoon, the door was unlocked. There was no reason to lock it back then. We
Mm-hmm.
had lots of reason to lock the windows and doors and put the put the gates up now. But back then we didn't
That
have
is
to
so
worry.
true. It is so true.
We
That
didn't have
is
to worry
so
about it.
true. And you
So
had your
yeah.
neighbors and everything that were good.
Yeah, there was
Um,
no key. Keys came along when my daughters were
mhm,
teenagers.
mhm.
During my generation, we didn't have keys.
Wow. What was it like, Dr. Velma, for you to now leave the house? You're an adult now and you're going to go on your own and being married. Who was left at the home and what was it like for mom
My
letting you go, if I
um,
would say that?
when I got married around close turning 20 or 21 that year, and my younger sister was still there. My brother, who was after me, what had already moved out, so she was the only one there at the time. And it was soon after she got married as well. So mom was able to have her own space by then. But we always gravitated to mom's house every Sunday. She had this habit of cooking dinner like we still lived there at the same volume. As if, yes, it took me a long time after learning to cook. And I had to cook for the house after my oldest sister left. That was my job. You get used to a certain level of food and how much, and once you get you it took me a long time to cut it down. My husband and I always had, and my husband was raised, I said, I don't know what kind of family you grew up in. I said, but we didn't let food waste. We always cooked enough that was plenty for the next day, and whatever we had left over was still there, we would eat that. I said, you get tired after the second day. I'm going, what
No!
kind of family did you grow up in? Well, you didn't eat the leftovers.
I'm telling you, we was looking forward to that, but there was
No,
something
he
that
would
was
ask me,
just,
didn't we have that already? I know, but we still have. So he started inviting his brothers over to enjoy a meal with us because in the beginning, I cooked too much.
wow. And see, at my household, they said we had beans and cornbread 365 days a week. I didn't know what a steak was until we got older because we ate a lot of vegetables and stuff like that.
So did
And
we,
so,
Miss
yeah,
Ellen. We did
yeah,
too.
yeah.
We
And so
had the big vats full of dry beans and a big vat
you
full of the
too?
rice.
In the tin
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
can? Ooh,
We didn't
flour,
shop for
cornmeal.
vegetables because we went to my grandmother's garage where they were already in the jars. If we wanted greens, we just went in the backyard, their backyard, to pick our greens and take it home and wash them and get them ready. But no, we didn't buy a lot of vegetables at the grocery store.
That is so good. And
Hmm.
some people are coming back to that, and they doing a lot of stuff. the way they grow things and things out of season, like strawberries
Well,
in
as things
wintertime.
go up in price, we're gonna all,
Yeah.
my daughter and I are talking about having our own little garden in the backyard as well for some of the things that we like, because it's just gonna be getting to that point.
And the main thing is eggs. Is just went back down 30 pack, a big old container, 30. It was $15 and it went down to
Also,
11
we
now.
don't have to lease out chickens anymore, so you can, because that's what we, they had some lady out here in California who was leasing chickens. She would deliver them in the cage and everything, and people would get their own eggs. But when I was growing up, you couldn't even come in our backyard because we had a rooster that wouldn't let you.
Mm.
He would peck your legs until you ran out of there. But I remember getting up, going to the chicken coop and getting our eggs, and people used to say, are you guys from the country?"
That's what I'm thinking now. What part of California was that?
We were in the San Francisco Bay Area, but my parents grew up from the South. My dad was from Arkansas, and my mother was from Louisiana. They didn't, they didn't change their stripes just because we were here.
Oh my
We
goodness.
had chickens, girl.
Oh my goodness. I didn't see that until I went down south. My grandfather had the chickens, the pigs. You could see it near the outhouse, and told me one time, don't make that pig your friend. You might have to
Yeah.
eat it one day. I was crying. I could
Well,
not believe it.
the rooster wasn't anybody's friend because he would tear you up if you came in the
I know.
backyard.
I don't blame him. Don't be messing with me. Then, Dr. Velma, we got a few more minutes here. Anything
Mhm.
else you want to tell us, like any events you going on, or any books, or any places you'll be?
Well, this book is out now. I'm excited. It's out. It's also in Audible as well. The anthology is out in the Audible, and as well as I have a few projects with my ebooks. They're now on Audible. A lot of my ebooks are now Audible. I'm so grateful that they're offering it now as a free service on Amazon. I am working on a couple of other pieces that I'm hoping to get done soon. The Hold Your Head Up Princess will have an activity workbook. I'm revamping that right now. And then I'm adding another piece to the Catch series to close it out. And that's going to be The Catch We Caught.
You mean when you say close it out? Do you mean ending it? Okay.
I believe so. Now,
Okay.
that's for this moment. Sometimes God will tell me different. And
Wow.
then
And you
I
already what,
am
six? You're already 5 books in already from
five.
the cat.
This will be six and maybe a workbook. I'm still making that
Can I
decision.
be nosy?
Hmm.
It, I can read your eyes when I'm just not gonna know. So the one that's coming out, are any of the characters coming in there? Or these are all new characters, a whole new spin
All,
on things that's
all
being
new
focused?
characters. You might get to meet some old ones, depending. It's the Catch We Caught coming back with their own stories of what they did with the information. So
That would be
I am
great.
looking for examples to use their stories, Miss Ellen. So talk to me
Okay.
offline and to mimic the story, to weave it into one of those characters and see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Dr. Velma, I can go ahead and laugh because I inboxed you first about my daughter. My oldest daughter
Uh-huh.
saw me with the handbag that,
Yes.
to catch the husband you deserve. She was livid. She said, Mama, you have a good husband. Why are you wearing that shirt? And what did I do? I inboxed you, as Dr. Velma. What about the married people that already have caught their man or
Yeah.
their wives?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you going to say about that? I'm not trying to throw you single women out the way,
Mm-mm.
but a married
It's
woman,
coming.
we already
New,
called.
yeah, new products are coming. The
Good.
Catch
That is
We
so
Caught.
good.
Mhm. And I break down the acronym CATCH. C stands for Christ-like. A is attributes. T, no, it's Christ-like attributes at. T, the. C, core. H, his heart.
So, Dr. Thelma, I know, like we talked last time, Christians are your audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
talked about how we don't know how to date seriously. If you're ready to date, it's better to marry than to burn. And some people got married and they didn't even know each other. You know,
Yeah.
they just got married, for
Right.
the fact of being
We don't have the right
intimate.
tools. We
So,
just don't.
are any of are any of us getting it? Like, what I mean is like, any pastors or like that is saying, being introduced to that and welcoming that it is true. We don't know how to date.
I was just peeking at a book that one of my friends wrote. She came through a bad experience of abuse, and she wrote this book of other stories as well. And I said, I have to get that book. I'm not going to show it to you, but it addresses the difficulties of abuse within the church
Yes.
because it's not dealt with appropriately. Neither are, we're told, single people are told to get married, but they're not being taught how to be married. And they don't understand that even before you meet that ideal person that God has for you, that you're preparing well in advance of walking down the aisle. And so marriage takes work, and you got to understand what those roles are and what your responsibilities are before you do that. And that's the sad part. And that's why marriage on the decline is going down in the church as well as outside, because we have this warped view of what that means. Because and the title of her book is Submit. I'll tell you the title is Woman Submit!
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exclamation point.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you're subservient, and that doesn't mean that you're somebody's punching bag
Mm-hmm.
either.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because we don't do our jobs and due diligence, really understanding this person before you get behind the doors with them, because we haven't done the work and understanding what we should be looking for, and stop looking at what's on the outside versus what's in the heart of the person.
Mm-hmm.
Even God says they walked into the room with all these GQ magazine sons of the man that God told the prophet to go and anoint. And he said, God said, none of these.
Right. Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
Jesse's, where do you have any more
He
sons?
sure did.
Now, all the ones he paraded were the GQs,
Yes.
the ones that should have been on the cover of the magazine.
Yes.
He said, do you have any others? And God said, none of these. He said, I got one more. And here comes nasty, smelling like sheep, David, ruddy,
Yes.
because he's doing his job. Now, if he had walked into a room of women, they would have turned their
They would
heads
say
and shook their
exactly.
heads and would not have even considered the heart of that man. And
No.
that's the biggest problem women have today.
And he was a
That
shepherd, a leader.
he was out there doing his job.
Yeah.
Can a man just be doing his
Yeah.
job? But the heart of that shepherd was the right heart. And so
Mm.
that's what women miss today. They look at the wrong
They
stuff. And
do.
every time I think about that scene where all these sons got paraded, looking all put together and ready to go and ready to shine the light on them and everything. And God said, none
No.
of them. And
None.
then why are we falling for it? Why are women still falling for that
Oh,
today?
exactly. We need to talk about that.
Hmm.
Hopefully, God would download for you to just, another
It's
thing
coming. It's coming. We'll
because
see.
we do need to. We do. It's very important that we learn, how to date. And for me personally, when you do ministry together, that's how you can. To me, and I think I think that's the way.
Yeah.
You do ministry together because you can't be doing things, getting yourself caught up in a little fleshly thing.
Right.
Not that the
Right.
flesh ain't gonna burn because you say
Right.
it doesn't equate. And my daughter and I, we talk about this, that nowadays people want, and there's nothing wrong with that. They want a man of God, but they think that a man of God will equate that he's not going to do anything in the world. Not saying that all of
Well,
them
that
will,
might
but you
be
know
the
what I'm
cap
saying?
he's wearing, but what's in the inside is what
Exactly.
matters. Because he's coming to the church to get the changes. You're coming to get changes for it too.
Exactly.
So you need to
Exactly.
know. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Oh, we at 52,
I
Dr. Velma. You really shook
know.
up the
I
house.
know.
You shook up the house till
Well,
somebody came up.
you pushed me. You pushed me.
Oh my goodness. This is a great conversation,
I
Dr.
appreciate
Velma.
that.
We're at 7:52, only a few more
Okay.
minutes. Anything else you want to share, anything about, relationship, whatever you have, to give us as a takeaway, and then let us know where we can reach you at.
Well, I know you and I have had several conversations about this and kind of the statements we hear women say a lot of time. Why do I have to cook? And why do I have? I said, that already will tell you you're not ready for anything concerning marriage, because you have to show some grace to your husband. And if you don't understand that yet, I don't have to do anything. But what I do, I do it because I love my husband,
Mhm.
just like he does what he does because he loves me. And until you understand that, we just don't understand love very well today. That's another thing we miss out on. We got this warped view of what love is, and it's not about what he does or what you do. And then the other thing is making sure that you can qualify what's on your list
Oh,
too.
come on.
Whatever you're expecting of him, see if you
Oh my
qualify, see if you can
goodness.
pass. Because that's crazy for you to have these expectations of him that you don't have of yourself. And
Mm,
then fix all your brokenness, your past experiences. You can't filter him through what you went through before. You got to start letting all that stuff go so it doesn't get in the way of you meeting the right guy.
mhm,
But like the rotten apple in a bowl, it'll cause all those apples to get rotten if you
mhm,
have a spot. So if you have a spot, guess what's going to happen to him? He starts off good, but you're going to cause him to be rotten later on. So
mhm.
you've got work to do. So do the work. If you really want that great man, then do the work and become that great woman
Come on now.
first.
Come on. You said in one of the books, the one of the catch series, Ruby Level, the one for the men,
Uh-huh.
uh, Ruby Level. Make
That's
sure
right.
you're at Ruby Level.
Ruby level.
Tell us about that.
That's ruby level.
Hmm.
That's all the things that God says that we should be as a woman of God. And so therefore that's why I said that the last thing you want to use a lot of is your mouth.
Hmm.
You want to learn how we have two ears and one mouth for a reason, to do twice as much listening than we do talking. And the most talking you want to do is when you're talking to God.
Yes.
There are times when I have to ask God to make a change, or God to do something I need my husband to do, or God to give him revelation about something without me going blah, 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 blah. And so
So true.
that's what you want to get practice on. There are two weapons you're going to have, and that's your prayer, and that's grace you're going to have. Prayer and grace, and learn to keep these lips quiet when something is happening. Talking to God first and asking God to give you the wisdom for it. So prayer is one, and the other one is silence.
That is so true. And that's one of the things that we have to learn,
Mhm.
even in our marriage. Like you say, it's continued work when we do in our marriage. And so um, we were talking to my daughter and I, a lot of people, the dating is, we're not, I, I'm,
I know. You don't even have to go there. Some people are not my audience, and I'm not worried. That's
exactly,
okay.
exactly. And that's what we talked about. We just being
How
intentional.
many years have you been married, Miss Ellen?
33,
And
33.
I've been married going on
Yes,
51. So that's the credentials we have.
yes,
So
yes.
we know what we're talking
We
about.
know what we're talking
Mhm.
about. And the prayer thing, our role that I learned is helper, and the wife is to pray.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the main two roles, being
Yep.
that helper. And they did not ask for us. God said, "This is not good.
Right. And he still says
It's
it.
not good."
Yeah. It's not good that man would be alone.
Mm-mm.
And you were created for him,
Mm-hmm.
not for you.
Not for me. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't created for me.
Right.
I was created for him.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. With that being said, give us where we can see you. We are on. No, it's
Oh,
so
on all
fast.
social media platforms, feel free to connect with me as Dr. Velma Bagby. And also on my website, you can subscribe because a lot of news and reports will come there at drvelmabagby.com. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can set it so that it'll send you a reminder when my um, podcasts go live. I just finished Finding Your Voice podcast at the end of March, and I'll begin with Dr. Velma Talks again real soon. So dating, relationships, and marriage. So I'm looking forward to that.
So, Dr. Vaughn, when we go to the YouTube, are we? is it archived if we want to go to the first
Yeah, you can.
one of the,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Sure can.
Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
then just look under your name, Dr. Velma, because I know I subscribe to you.
Dr. Velma
And
Bagby. Mm-hmm.
yeah, awesome. Have a wonderful night. I'm sure
You
we'll
too,
have
too.
more.
I had a good time.
Yes,
I'm
that's
ready to go
awesome.
see what we're going to eat this
Yeah,
evening right now.
go ahead. Go ahead. Take care.
Okay, you take care too.
All right. Thank you
I
so
hope to
much.
get to Newport sometime soon.
Yes, yes, yes. It's dry as a bone, but we'll start some fire
That's
somewhere.
okay. It's
All
the
right.
people. Okay.
That's
Bye
true.
bye.
Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for being here again. Ellen Sutter, the ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. Thank you, Sheets. I'll just say 757 because I am so not good at doing those names and stuff. Thank you guys for being here. And also, this is a channel where we do live shows with author, New York Times bestsellers, award winning, and newly published. We also have a show that is our most requested show. It is a show that we do for 3 days, just like what Dr. Velma did, and it is scheduled. It is a scheduled 3 day show. Ask us about that. Email us at mrssuds@yahoo.com. That's MRSSUDDS@yahoo.com. So if you're interested and you're ready to be on my show, put in the subject heading, I am ready to go. That means you're ready. You're not thinking about it. You're actually ready to go forward. So you guys have an amazing day. Good night. Take care. Bye bye. And again, thank you, Dr. Velma, for coming.